Hi and welcome back to That Office Guy. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the average if function. This is super easy and super useful to use because it allows you to average a range based on a criteria. Now, as we get into it, if you find it useful and informative, then hit the like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new, then do go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and you won't miss another hint or tip from Microsoft 365. Right, let's jump on down into the desktop and take a look at how to use the average if function. Okay guys, so here we are on Excel, and what we're going to do is we're going to run through a couple of examples and a couple of notes just about this particular function. This is not one that I tend to use too much. I actually prefer to use average ifs, but I'm going to show you how to use average if in this video, and then check the next one out when we talk about average ifs, because that is my preferred method. Now, in terms of average if, it's very, very straightforward. Let me just run through the notes to start with. So basically, cells in a range that contain true or false are ignored. It's also worth just noting, and if a cell in average range is an empty cell, the average if formula will also ignore that. If the range is blank or text value, it will basically return a not indivisible by zero error, and if the cell in criteria is empty, the average if treats that as a zero. Now, if no cell in the range meets the criteria, you'll also get a non-divisible by zero error, and you can use wildcards such as question marks, asterisks in the criteria. A question mark matches a single character, an asterisk matches a sequence of characters. If you want to find an actual question mark or asterisk, then you obviously have to just type a slightly different character, this special title here, basically just to do that. Now, what we're going to do is going to go through several examples because the ranges don't have to be the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through these examples, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll have a good understanding as to how this function works. It actually is broken down into a couple of simple parts. The most simplified version of the function is to basically just type average if, open up a parentheses, and then you've got the range that is going to be your criteria range. Okay, now this criteria range can also be your average range. You actually get the option here to split them out into two different areas. Now, in this particular example, this first example, we basically have from B2 to B5. And if we take a look down here, this is the commission column inside our data, and then we're saying it's less than 23,000. Now you'll notice how the less than 23,000 is in double quotations on either side. That is how you're going to have to do these particular kind of formulas. And you'll also notice that it's not just the number that is inside those double quotations, it's also the less than symbol or greater than symbol or equal to symbol. You have to make sure that they are actually contained inside those double quotations. And when you basically run this through, it's going to basically look at everything inside B2 to B5, find all the values that are less than 23,000 and then average them, okay? And the result of that is 14,000, okay? And so it's quite a straightforward and quite a simple process. Basically, it's the range that the criteria sits in. It's then what is the criteria, okay? And then basically it's going to average the numbers that are inside this range here, unless of course you specify an average range. Now we'll get into that in a moment. The other version down here, for example, is average all properties less than 250,000, and two of the four properties meet this condition, and their total value is 300,000. So again, we're now looking at the property values down in column A, right? So it's A2 to A5 this time, and we're going for less than 250,000, right? So in here we can see that the average value of that is 150,000. So in the same way that we run this one, we did exactly the same here. It's in double quotations, less than 250,000, but we're running on column A rather than column B. So these two functions and formulas, they are exactly the same. Obviously, it just allows you to choose which range you're going to run your criteria and your average on. Now, this particular example, the third example that we have here, is designed to average all the property values, so that's column A, with less than 95,000. Now there are 0 properties with less than 95,000 as a property value, and there's nothing in here less than 95,000. And as a result of this, your average if function is trying to basically divide 0 by 0, and that gets you a non-divisible by 0 error appear. So you get this div error, right? And this is basically just because you're trying to divide 0 by 0 and it's just not possible. So basically you end up with this scenario here. So really worth knowing that if you are using this particular function, you might also want to wrap it inside an if error so that you can then actually start to manage your errors inside your data set. Now, the last example, this is where this formula becomes more useful, at least in my opinion. This is really about when your criteria sits in a different column than your average range, okay? So you want to average all of your commissions with a property value greater than 250,000. So there's 2 commissions that meet this condition and their total is 49,000. So what we're talking about here is we're looking at all of the properties, okay, that are greater than 250,000. There's only these 2 here, okay? And then what we're trying to do is we're averaging this range here, okay? And that comes back as an average of 24,500. Now, in order for this to work, we have to open up that average if formula, open parentheses, A2 to A5. This is the condition range, okay? So this is the range of the property values. And then we're in double quotations, we're saying greater than 250,000. And then we're putting a comma, and then we're putting the average range after, okay? So unlike these other formulas that we've run beforehand, we are putting the range to actually average after we've done the criteria range and the criteria. Okay, so really quite straightforward formula. It's not overly complicated. This would probably be the way I would suggest people play around with it, because in most cases, your average range is likely to be separate to your criteria range. So it's always good to understand how to do this. Sometimes these work perfectly fine, right? You might actually find that these are suitable for your purposes. But for the most part, this is probably the most useful version where you do actually split out your average range from your criteria range. And like I said, watch out for the next video where we talk about average ifs, because average ifs actually allow us to have multiple different criteria, which could also be in multiple different columns. And it's just a lot more robust, more flexible. So that is my preferred method when it comes to averaging ranges based on criterias. This is useful. It's always good to know how this one works, but average ifs, in my opinion, is slightly better. So guys, hopefully you have found this video useful and informative. If you have, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you're new, do subscribe, tap the bell, and you won't miss another hint or tip when it comes to Microsoft 365. Guys, with all this said, done, and out of the way, I'll catch you all in the next one.